All right, everybody, welcome to the July 2026 workshop of Autism Empowerment's Neurodivergent Creators Collective. I am Brian Tashima. I am the program coordinator for the NCC. And today we are very lucky to have back Edward Martin III from Hellbender Media. He was here back in February for a presentation on low budget filmmaking, which was really great, really insightful, and people expressed an interest in learning more about the pre-production process, which was just one part that he touched on back in February, but now we're going to be able to spread out a little bit more and talk about it a little bit more in depth. So thank you all for being here, and I will just get out of the way so we can get on with learning all about the pre-production process for filmmaking. So take it away, Edward.
Thank you so much, Brian, and thank you, John and Karen and Ryan, also for having me back, and for everyone who asked to see me again. I appreciate it. Let's see. So, for those of you who don't know, my name is Edward Martin. I've been a writer and a filmmaker for, give or take, about 26, 27 years, longer than close to 3 decades. I have four feature films, probably about 40 short films, 7 different web series, a total of maybe 200 or 300 episodes, and a bunch of other. I also write and have books and so forth. So that's me in a super tiny nutshell. Um, the I was thinking about how to handle questions. So, because I know people are going to have questions, and I'm going to be moving kind of quick. So, what I suggest is if you have a question, go ahead and type the question in its fullness, give some context, whatever, and pop it in the chat window. And then at the end of the talk, I'll go through them. And because you've given it like a little bit of context, I'll be able to answer those questions in more detail rather than trying to catch us, on the fly or, like, oh, I just typed in a quick question. Go ahead and take your time. Type the question you want to type. It's okay. Let's see, pre-production. Um, I am going to try sharing my screen. So if this all works, you're probably seeing my witchcraft slide and
Yep.
and then like me up in the corner with the rest of us in the corner. Okay. Okay. So planning. So planning is going to save your bacon. Except for very, very trivial productions, it's true that the better you plan, the more likely you are to succeed. One of the interesting questions that I asked myself before I prepared this was, what is pre-production kind of consists of sort of two branches, right? And I'm going to cover the first branch, which is things that apply to all productions, sort of. So like no matter what, you want to make sure you kind of have your ducks in a row for all these productions. And then the other part of pre-production is things are going to apply to this production, the one you're working on right now, or the one you will be working on for whatever value that might be. So I want you to think of pre-production as like this. Everything up to the first day on set that is planning is filling up your gas tank to be able to handle this project. Once you start filming, you use that gas. So the more planning you can do, the more gas you have in your tank. I've included some things in this section. Some of the stuff might fit under development, but we're going to see if it still makes sense. I broke it up into these categories because I thought it might be fun to look at it this way. And also, I wanted to stress a couple things. First, no, I've probably forgotten something, and that's okay. Feel free to remind me if I've forgotten something. And second, you're going to organize your projects in different ways. So whatever works for you, whatever gets the job done so that your production goes smooth, that's the best way of doing it for you. And that is totally okay. Some of the stuff I'm not going to go too deep into details because I kind of want to focus on pre-production and I want to get through this in allegedly an hour. Okay, so let's see. So anyway, that's not so far. All right, so let's start with the script. Without a script, you ain't getting anywhere. Let's get something out of the way at a low budget level, like what kind of like most of us are at. And if I'm presuming, I'm sorry. Please don't worry too much about tools. I've written scripts using a ton of different tools. I've written them using Word, Notepad, Wright, Scrivener, Celtics, Movie Magic Screenwriter, Final Draft, many more. There's a ton of bunches of tools. And there are screenwriting guides out there that are very useful if you need help with formatting. By the way, at the end of this presentation, I have a couple of slides that are books. These are books I've read, books I've gone through, books I've used. Um, and we're saving the deck and we're saving the presentation, so you can always review this later. So you run your script by your main crew. That's your assistant director, your cinematographer, your producer, etc. You meet with them, you walk through each scene, you make sure everyone has a rough idea, kind of how the scenes are going to be addressed. Meet with your cast, you do read-throughs, everybody gets a copy of the script. They do their parts highlighted, and you all read through the script from top to bottom. You make sure it sounds good to your ears, that the actors are nailing the parts, and everyone still feels good about it. Usually the script can be called lot at a certain point, but realistically, scripts kind of get filled with all the time afterwards. The reason I've like, okay, this is probably development. That's okay, because once you lock your script, everything changes. So first, let's talk about script breakdown, which is really so much. It's a ton of work, but it's totally worth it. Breaking down the script is simple on the surface, but it becomes really kind of an art as you move through because you get better and better at spotting tricky props, tricky conditions, understanding how long a scene might take to film. The breakdown is going to go line by line, scene by scene, and you note every little detail that has to be saved, every prop, every location, every member of the cast, every special effect, everything that goes into this, you note it. Now, in the example I've got here, I kind of used a little bit of color coding. That's sometimes, depending on how you're doing it, you may use highlighters, however you want to do it. This is a sample of like just one page, and it's very setup heavy because this was like literally the first page of a script, and I needed to have a ton of elements in here. So I thought, well, there's a really great example of showing a ton of props that have to go in there. So I'm going to go over all these elements. Understand this is just a skim, but we're going to try to cover everything. Um, yeah. Oh my God, yeah, there were so many props. Oh man. Okay, you need a tool to organize. At the low-level budget, organizing all this pre-production stuff, it hinges on kind of what tool you're happiest with. It should let you store all the information that we're about to talk about. There are some fancy tools out there, such as Gorilla, and then there are those of us who kind of home grow everything because we kind of have that particular fuss. And I mean fuss in an affectionate way, by the way, because I get fussy about my things too. Here's some screenshots from a spreadsheet that I used when I organized a short movie. It had a lot of different locations, a lot of different elements and props, and we moved around through time and everything like that. If you like homegrown, you might also do okay with a database with a fancy front end. Or there might be a WordPress plugin for pre-production tracking. I mean, wouldn't that be nice? That said, I actually am trying to figure out how can I do this on WordPress, set up a pre-production site. And it is an interesting challenge. Okay, so, but my point with this is that your tool should let you keep track of things in the way that makes you comfortable. I've used a spreadsheet often. You could use just about anything that works. Oh, there's another tool. There's an online tool called Celtics, C-E-L-T-X. And they have a pretty nice pre-production setup. So pretty much starting with a script and allowing you to break down, track all your props, all your characters, all your locations and so forth. They have a pretty good tool for that too. Equipment that you're going to need. Most of this is basic equipment that I have already talked about previously. If you have access to this deck, and you want to review, you're all going to have access to this deck, okay? It's going to be in the parts that come before this. The reason I mentioned it here is because I want you to think of this as part of your pre-production checklist. So for every movie, every production, you're going to do kind of, run a checklist like, oh, let's make sure we have cameras. Let's make sure we have stabilizers. Let's make sure we have microphones. Let's make sure we have lights. I'm not going to offer you a list of all possible lights that you should be including. Instead, just put a note in your brain or on your list, remember lights. If I were you, I would make it a point to always bring a standard toolbox. Wrenches, screwdrivers, etc. Include little tools like jeweler's screwdrivers, scribes, things like that. I might also suggest packing up a bin of crafty tools, such as string, scissors, utility knives, markers, cardboard, and so forth. And of course, oh God, please, a working first aid kit, because it isn't always the inorganic things you have to fix. And a Leatherman, right? Everybody's got a Leatherman, right? Tell me you got a Leatherman. Okay, at least someone on your team should have a Leatherman. Um, okay, so let's move into things that are kind of more specific towards like individual your individual project, whatever that might be. So let's start with props. During your script breakdown, you please, please make a complete list of all the props you need. A prop is anything that's held by, carried by, or referenced by a character. If the location has some special set dressing, such as like, oh, science fiction surfacing on the walls, or the shelves are filled with stuffed animals, all of whom have been, wearing little helmets. That counts as a prop because it's important enough to make sure it happens. So I include all those in my list of props. A common thing to do for a frequently used prop, like say lightsaber, right? Okay, so lightsabers are from this show called Star Wars. You may have heard of it. So you build a very nice version of that prop, really detailed. You spend all your time and your effort, and that's for close-up shots. That's called the hero prop. And then you build a whole bunch of really crappily built. You whip them out for the wide shots, the long shots, because when you're showing two people fighting with lightsabers from 40 feet away, they literally could be almost holding toilet paper tubes that you've hit with a Sharpie, and it won't matter that much. But when someone says like, oh, I see you've made your own lightsaber, and you look at it, that one's got to look really good. So you make one hero prop, and you make a bunch of junk props that can, if they get broken, it's no big deal. I have spent more money than I would have liked on making multiple props and making them all hero props. And of course, once one breaks, oh my God, we can't film with that anymore. And you got to think of some props as disposable and some props are hero props. Um, so for each prop, um, in whatever tool you're using to track, make sure you know where it's coming from, where it'll be stored, who's in charge of it, their phone number, and anything else that might make sense. Sometimes like a photo of it or detailed photos or whatever, something so that you basically in your tool, whatever tool that might be, you can look up the prop and know everything that you need to know about that prop. And ideally, discuss with your production designer and so forth, what do we need to know about this prop? What's important about this prop? Costumes. Also, as with props, please make a list of every costume you're going to need. Unless you're making Gilligan's Island, and actually Lovey doesn't count. This includes what each character wears and what they wear on each day and in each environment. So if it changes, that's a thing to remember. My suggestion is to assemble a bin. I say bin like it's this big. No, it's a sizable bin for each character with the character's name on the bin, and then put all the costume and the closely associated props and so forth in that bin. And if the character has a different wardrobe for certain scenes, you make a separate bin. Or you can use like the same bin, but a dry cleaning bag, something like that to separate really clearly. This is what my character will wear when they're going through the sewers. This is what my character wears when they're in court. Okay. So when the actor shows up for the day, you give them the bin. You go to the restroom or go to the changing room, change out, put all you change out, right? Put everything in the bin on, put all your clothes in the bin, and then you bring that back to whoever's wrangling your costumes. Okay, so the advantage to that is that your costumes don't go walkabout because they have to change back out again, and sometimes that can happen. Sometimes your actors will say, "Hey, can I wear my stuff out? Wear it home. I want to show it off to my family or something." I discourage that because you will probably never see that costume again. So some people organize their costumes by using tags on hanger, like a hanger, and has a little tag on it that's saying, "This is Joe Bob's costume for scenes 45 to 72." Um, if you can organize it that way, that's great. I tried that once. Oh, and it drove me absolutely nuts. But different people organize things in different ways. So um, what works for you is what works. As with props, I encourage you to make sure that there is a single person who's responsible for costuming, or well, costuming is designing the costumes, but also keeping track of the costumes while you're filming. Locations. As you do a complete read through of your script, you also make a list of every location. So this is all kind of part of the script breakdown. Um, you note that, please note that locations don't have to match interiors to exteriors. So it's very common that the interior of a house is a set. And the exterior of a house is just a house out in the suburbs somewhere, okay? Working on a proper set is a ton easier because the walls are removable, the ceiling is a lighting grid. It's really great. But outside, like, and you'll see this in a lot of TV shows. Watch TV shows are great for watching because in TV shows, the production has to happen very quickly. So they've got their basics and they do their basics real fast. And then anything special, they focus on that. So on a TV show, you'll notice, hey, we cut to exterior, the Simpsons house, and then we cut to interior, the Simpsons house. That's so common. And that's exactly what they're doing now in The Simpsons, of course. Why did they pick an animated example? I don't know. But any live TV show, they're going to cut to the exterior almost always and then cut to the interior, living room, couch, or kitchen, or whatever. That is almost, I'll guarantee you, that's a set where they have complete control over everything. Whereas the exterior is just a piece of stock. They went out and they got someone's house. They paid money for that, but they got a house. Interior, exteriors. My point is they don't always match. For every location in your tracking tool, note its physical address. So remember, like with interiors and exteriors, might be two separate ones. That's okay. If there are specified hours that you can or can't use it, who's in charge of the location on set, which is usually going to be the production manager. Uh, sorry, no, sorry, I'm sorry, like the owner of the location, right? Who's the liaison from your group to the owner of the location, and who's the owner of the location. Make sure that you keep track of phone numbers from everyone. It has happened. To us in the past where someone else who works at a location, we were filming at a workplace, a business, someone else who was like a manager showed up and they were very upset that we were there. We had the owner of the building and the owner of the business there as well. And because they approved, everything was fine. And so this manager shows up to, I don't know, do some extra work. Kind of had a little problem with that and was about to cause some trouble before his boss's boss comes out and the owner of the building come out and basically ask, what are you doing? We know about this. Stop. That's why you want to always have the owner's phone number, contact, and so forth. And of course, you're going to get permission. Speaking of permission, each location should have a release on file. And it's typical for a location to require proof of insurance. On a low budget project, this might not be much of an issue. It should be, but it's important to learn enough that I encourage you to learn about location releases and how production insurance works. Obviously, if you're just filming at your house or your backyard, that's less of an issue, but it's still a thing that as you start nudging up into bigger, more complex productions, please do study up on that. That is its own topic. Okay, so storage. I always underestimate this one. For big productions, such as a feature or a series or even a web series, consider renting a storage locker somewhere. All your props, all your costumes, all your gear are safe in one place. I cannot tell you how many times we went hunting for some piece of gear only to realize that it was in someone's garage and that person happened to be offset. In one case, he was on a date. I'm not saying you shouldn't go on dates, but when you go on dates, all our stuff is locked in your garage, buddy. If you get a storage locker, I suggest using a combination padlock, and only certain people get that combination. If your production goes on longer than a week or two, and it's going to be, right? If you're getting a storage locker for your stuff, this is a longer production, and that's okay. Then change that combination on regular intervals, like every week or two, and then keep making sure that that combination goes to the people who want it. Even though only certain people have it, it still kind of spreads. And it's best to just keep changing that combination every once in a while to prevent mischief. For smaller productions or situations where you don't need much long-term storage, a friendly garage can help. And if you have a rack like this setup, you can keep labeled bins and supplies there. I would suggest transparent bins. It just keeps you from having to look in each one. You can kind of suss them quick. For one of the projects, we filmed for about 6 weeks. It was a feature. We rented out a trailer. And we had a dedicated locking garage for the trailer. So everything we put everything in that trailer. So all we had to do was like, hey, we're going out on set. So open the garage, back the car in, hook up the trailer, and we're gone. And when we're done, back that trailer back in the garage and lock it down. We rarely lost anything because it was always in the trailer. So facilities at any location, try to make sure that there are certain dedicated spaces for different activities. Definitely craft services. Don't skip on that. There should be a place dedicated for makeup and costuming. There should be a place where the first aid kit is located. Most of your people should know. I mean, once you're there and you figure out like this is going to be where craft services are, this is going to be where this is going to be where that is. Make sure everybody knows, especially things like first aid kit. All right. I also suggest a space where people can hang out if they aren't actively engaged in the filming right then. Sometimes actors will request spaces where they can run lines, and if at all possible, accommodate that too, because it gives them that chance to sort of be right there and a little better at what they're doing. So once you've cast people in the roles, I suggest keeping track of them. In your records, keep their address, phone number, email, contact number, in case you lose track of them. So not an emergency contact, just like, hey, if we can't track you down for a reason, is there a buddy of yours we can call who might know where you are? Or it can say like, hey, turn on your phone, they're trying to reach you. Also, emergency contact, not a bad idea. Keep their contracts and their releases stashed in your paperwork folders and pretty much forever. If your production is big enough, you might end up with several crew who are handlers, and their jobs are to remain connected to your cast. And normally that would be like a second assistant director. Um, I think so. I'm cheating a bit. My producer's here too. So Amber, that second assistant director is supposed to keep track of the actors, or is that just
Um,
second assistant director?
second, hold on. Second assistant director. So there's the assistant director who's really running everything on set, and then there's the second AD who specifically always works with the actors. The AD, of course, can come in at any time.
Okay, thank you. Oh, all right. Second AD is working with like the extras and making sure the background.
Uh, there's so this you can have on one of the big Hollywood sets that I was on. There were multiple second ADs. I mean, there were like eight of them, and
Okay,
that was working with many, like even going through and hiring the extras and things like that.
okay. So that's generally going to be, I say handler. What
Oh,
I'm
wait a minute. Hold on. Sorry. The the ADs, sorry, the assistant directors work mostly directly with our stars. Then the second ADs work with the extras. But the
okay,
second ADs will also do like the paperwork for like SAG-AFTRA and stuff like that, often to help kind of carry the weight for the AD.
cool. Thank you. So that that's the bigger you go, and you'll learn all these terms. These are great. You'll learn them better than I've learned them, clearly. All right, just like with cast, please keep good track of all your crew. In your organizing tool, whatever you're using, you include their contact info, their positions. If they're in charge of anything special that's not obvious from their positions, um, that could be like, so you might have a prop master, right? So, but you have a very special prop that you've rented from a place. Let's say a very fancy model of a sailing ship. And the rental place says, we're not just going to hand that over to you. You need to dedicate a person, or we're going to dedicate a person to babysitting that prop. And so that might come in. That's just an example. And then they're around that prop all the time. And when they're all done, they basically take charge of that prop and move it off set, take it back, or stash it where they stash it. Um, for the purposes of your production, that person is part of your crew, and please keep track of them too. Okay, so these are sort of kind of high level things that you're going to need to do for any movie. Um, so you broke down your script, you have an organizing tool. let's start taking a look at sort of the really creative part. This is where the director starts kicking in. So certain things like spy conversations and French cafes, they're easy to film because everybody knows basic three-shot layout. And some of these other things can be a real challenge. And if you want to know what three-shot layout is, stay tuned because I do have an answer for that. Storyboards help the director share how they want to see the scene. Storyboards are generally what the camera sees. That's why they're sort of loosely told from the point of view of the camera. Please don't get too hung up on artistic quality for storyboards. As you can see, I am no Rembrandt. Note the very last page. There's no drawings on that. That's a shot list, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. So please do storyboards if you can, especially for things that are going to be unusual or weird. You know, like if someone's fiddling with a lightsaber and like, oh, I see you made your own lightsaber. You want to have a storyboard and then it says close up on the lightsaber. Please, otherwise you're not going to get that. In addition to storyboards and a shot list, there's another piece of planning that you can do to save yourself a headache, and that's a layout. So layout is a rough plan of the location, including the location of cameras, the shooting angles, and so forth. Having a layout is kind of some magic. You can ask the crew to do setup A, and you'll know to get all the pieces in the right place because everyone's sharing the same layout. They know what setup A is going to be. A layout also helps you keep track of the line, which famously must never be crossed. And I'll tell you more about the line in a second. A layout helps you remember which part of a set will be on screen and which part of a set will not be. Surprisingly, that is a problem for some people, and you want to get them off screen. A layout also helps you know where you can lay track if you're setting up a dolly shot. And I do a lot of dolly shots because I have a dolly and track, and so I try to use it every time I get. I cannot overemphasize how important layouts are. They will save you hours per day. If you have your storyboards in order, and your shot list is in order, and your layouts are in order, I almost guarantee you're going to have a great shoot. Yeah, I mean, those three things are just amazing. So the line. You often hear filmmakers talk about crossing the line, or more specifically, don't cross the line. And also, I can guarantee you've seen it in a movie where the line was crossed, usually low budget stuff, and you may not have noticed it right away, but your brain did. And it's like, wait, what? Who's he looking at? Who's he talking to? What are they talking to? That's because they've crossed the line. It's a part of the grammar of filmmaking. So the line is kind of an imaginary divider between the audience experience and the action. If you were watching a play, the line would be the edge of the stage. The audience is always on one side of the line, and the action is always on the other. I mentioned play because it's a very static situation. Plays don't move. This example I've posted here is now it's like a bird's eye view, right? So it's two people at a table. So you've got two actors sitting at a table. Any camera shot must happen from behind the line. And all the action must happen in front of the line. These kinds of shots, and this particular kind of shot is great for sort of establishing an area, and they're often called master shots. The camera's often back a ways, and you kind of see the whole scenario. You see our characters sitting at a table looking at each other, and they're kind of talking their thing. And that's what you're seeing here. An interesting phenomenon that you're seeing here, and that you do see in movies, but you may not recognize it, is called cheating the camera. So normally when you're sitting at a table and you're talking to someone, you're directly across from each other, like this. Well, let's assume you're the camera, because you are right now. When you cheat the camera, you move everyone a little bit like this. So you're, instead of seeing a straight profile like this, you're kind of seeing kind of a 3/4 view of their face, and they're talking to each other. That's not how we really sit in real life. But when you see it in a movie, you'll see that they're kind of cheating each other. They're cheating the camera a little bit. It's just cool to see these tricks. If you cross the line without properly moving the viewer into that position, it might seem okay, but it tends to introduce disorientation in the viewer because they aren't always sure what the actors are doing and where they're doing it. It's subtle, but it's there, and so try not to cross the line. So here's an example of a line that is not a straight line. It's not even on the floor. This line is basically a ring above the heads of 6 mob bosses all sitting at a table. The camera can be moved all around, and whatever you want to do, you can shoot from all around there, as long as the top of its frame never shows high enough to cross the line. This is the way to give you these shots. That's like, oh, everyone is staring at everyone else, playing a poker game or they're negotiating for something. And as long as you're constantly moving and you remember where your line is and you never cross it, it'll look fine. And we actually, you might think that this is sort of an odd setup, but we did it for 3 different movies, and it's really quite an interesting effect. In this case, we had a big circle, and the line in that instance, you can imagine the ends of the tracks on either side of that curve. The line is kind of from one end of the track, one end of the C track to the other. So the camera can be anywhere on one side, and all our actors on the other side. Definitions. So when we say the line, crossing the line or not crossing the line it can be tricky. The line can be curved, it can be fluid. If you move the camera, you can kind of, because you're the viewer, right? So you're following along and people are looking at you. You can kind of just keep moving around and shift that line as you're moving the camera into place. That's okay. If you just suddenly abruptly jump and the camera's on the other side of the line, it's going to disorient the viewer a slight bit. Let's see. So I want to talk about the 3-camera layout. And I mentioned it, so I told you I'd get there. These are 2 people sitting at a table discussing their latest game of D&D. The wide angle, which is that first one, right? That's usually called the master shot, and it's best to get those first right away. And typically on a master shot, the actors will run through the entire scene. Whatever that conversation is, run through the whole conversation on a master. Then the other 2 common angles are favoring each character, but shooting over the shoulders of the other. Now note that the camera must stay on one side of the line and for all 3 shots. So the shoulders of the characters have to appear in the appropriate sides of the frame. This is a basic 3-camera shot. It's not the only shots that you're going to make for a scene, but it's a super basic shot that everybody uses. And like I mentioned TV shows earlier, if you pay attention and you watch TV shows carefully, because remember, TV shows are doing stuff fast. They, especially like daytime TV shows and stuff like that. Yes, I occasionally watch those. They know what they need to get, and they need to get it in a hurry, so they're moving fast, and they're going to give you very basic shots quite often. So you'll see in these conversation shots, like, oh, we're looking over this person's shoulder. Oh, now we're looking over this person's shoulder and at that person. As long as you don't cross the line, it totally makes sense. The line sort of helps establish the geography of the location in your head. If you've ever seen a behind the scenes thing, and I'm sure you have, you know that everything over here is all tons of camera gear and crew and people. So obviously if you saw the whole thing, we are creating an imaginary 3-dimensional space. When you're looking at a cafe, we want you to believe that this area back here is people getting strudels, and they're buying coffee, and they're in line, and they're placing orders. Obviously, we don't want you to see, think about camera guys. So we have to kind of keep your imagination, keep that in your imagination. And if we flip around, that can mess with your head. So we had an interesting example of a 3-camera layout. We had a situation where we needed 3 cameras. Let me make sure I have this right. So we had a camera on a circular dolly, because I love my circular dolly shots. We had a camera on a jib, and a jib is like a seesaw with a camera. So you can go low and you can raise the camera high on a jib. We had a camera that one of our camera operators was we kind of gave him a rectangle, and he said, hand hold that and keep your camera on this guy. And then we had another camera kind of set, was in the woods. And we had another camera kind of set up a little back in the trees, so that the frame was like, there's some trees in the way, and then you kind of saw like the group of campers through the trees. So that was 4 cameras. But our primary actor had an issue with severe and immediate fatigue. So this guy, and this, it is what it is, and we got to adapt to it. So normally when you do a 3-camera shoot, you shoot the master, then you reset things, you change the lighting a bit, you shoot the side, you reset things, change the lighting a bit, you shoot the other side, you reset things, you change the lighting a bit, you shoot what's called pickups, like here's the mug in my hand, here's the cigarette in my hand, I'm rolling the dice, here I'm counting out change, little pickups like that. This guy we could not do that with. He had essentially, he had little tiny batteries. And so we figured we might get one solid take, and maybe 2 if we were lucky. So we kept all the cameras rolling, all 4 cameras at the same time. So we had our operator on the dolly, just like we just told him to go back and forth, slowly until you get to the end and then keep going back, keep this guy in frame. On the operator on the jib, we told him while we start filming, I just want you slowly going up and down throughout the whole thing and just keep him on there. Our handheld guy, we told him keep on this guy, and then we had the camera that was like off in the trees, and we just sort of set that and just let it roll. We got 2 takes out of the guy before he fell asleep, which is fine. Like I said, we all have our limitations, right? And so we just adapted for that, and that's one of the things that it takes a little longer to set up. Totally worth it if you've got limitations like that. And we never crossed a line. We not once saw any other camera gear or any background stuff that we shouldn't have seen on that. And it took a bit of time. It took about 2 hours to set all those cameras up. Shot lists. A shot list is basically which storyboard will be shot in which order. Your shot list is one of the most magical pieces of planning that you will ever know. A shot list is how you keep from wasting time on setups, or wasting time moving gear, or keeping your actors waiting around too long. I will tell you something about a shot list. If a production is small enough and the director and the DP understand the default layouts well enough, and that's why I refer to things like 3-camera layout and stuff like that, a movie can be made using only a shot list. As long as the scenes are numbered by the slate, the editor can assemble it using only a shot list. Please don't do that. I can do that with like one of my cinematographers, because he and I have known each other for almost 30 years. But in general, please, storyboards, layouts, shot list. In general, when you start a new scene, the first shot is going to be the wide. Actors will go through the whole scene while 1 or more cameras are capturing the master shot. And the next will be the shots that are favoring each character. And usually after that, like I said, you'll get pickups, which are very tight shots of significant things. Cigarettes, someone opening up a locket, little detailed things. You want to get those. That's going to be on your shot list. Let's see, in this case, wow, my handwriting is terrible. I can kind of follow it. Okay, but yeah, the first shot were like wides, and then we had some jumping in and out of shots, and I think we kept, like little tiny pickup shots. Okay, so here's another slightly better written, a simple example of a shot list. The shots are ordered by importance. You get that master shot first, unless there's a strong reason not to, and I'll explain that in a second. The one reason why you might want to get, usually you would get your master shot first, right? And you get your favors, and then you get your ECU, short for extreme close-up. You get your ECUs, your pickups and stuff like that. So there might be a reason you want to get a pickup, such as a dog, first instead of later. Is that maybe the dog trainer only has them for an hour, or like a baby. You have a baby on set, and you have this whole sequence where someone's arguing and they're pacing back and forth in the room, and they're carrying a baby. There's an actual example of this. It's called the Sniper, I think, or American Sniper, right? So there's this whole scene where the guy's having an argument and he's carrying a baby. They had like one shot. There's like 5 babies were supposed to be there, and each of the babies, they couldn't make it for different reasons. So they ended up, I think they had a baby for like a half an hour, and then everything after that, they had to use a fake baby. So while your baby's there, or while your dog is there, or if you have a weird, unusual thing that you're going to be filming that you can only film for a limited period of time, film that first. Because at a certain point, you can say, okay, if we got that, great. Then we film the hero shots. Remember I mentioned hero props? And I used an example of a model of a sailing vessel, right? So bring that in, that's your hero prop. and like film your actor, I'm really angsting, and I'm angsting in front of this model of this ship. Okay, great. And he turns and he moves back into the room. Cut. Get that, $5,000 model offset, and then bring in the one that's kind of crappy, the one that only costs like $200 because they just 3D printed it or whatever. And so then your actor can pace around the room and do these crazy things, and that model is there. So those might be reasons where you would film what seems like out of sequence, but it's not. It's favoring a limited resource. Another example of filming hanging by a limited resource would be what's called ringers. Okay, so let's say you got lucky and Samuel Jackson wanted to be in your movie, but he doesn't want to leave his house. So you write a movie where Samuel Jackson is the boss and he's barking orders in an intercom on his desk. So you're going to rearrange your scenes and your shots so that your team goes to Samuel Jackson's house, films all of those, and then leaves. You're done with that guy. You pay him and everything's done. Now everything else you film in a way that makes more sense in accordance to what you're filming and so forth. So, gosh, I think we might, at the moment, I mean, that's kind of how you're going to shoot, everything you're going to shoot. Yeah. So let's see here. I wanted to, okay, okay. Oh, so from Karen, okay. When you're a beginner, how do you know where to set up the line so you don't disorientate the viewer? You start by studying how layouts of shots, and I gave you a couple examples right there. You literally just draw a line, like okay, and watch how like think in terms of a line, and then watch something like daytime soap or a regular show. Okay, I got a wild hair, and I've recently rewatched all of Fantasy Island from the 70s. And that was great because I could see all these classic setups in use, constantly in use. But you get a sense of like, oh, the camera's over here and everything's there. Your line can move however you need to move your line. So some of the examples I use show like two people talking at a table, and the line is here, and the cameras are on this side of the line, and they're pointing this way, like your camera is right now. Like you can't see what's behind my camera. That just happens to be where the line is. The line is fluid, and the line is fluid. Its position is fluid. The line is impermeable. So move the line as need be. If you need to cross the line, like if two people are talking, kind of cheating the camera a little bit, and they're talking, and it's like, hey, I really like that earring of yours, and you want to show this person's earring, you can then bring a camera here to show the earring. Show the earring really close. So you've kind of moved past the line a little bit, but you're still sort of on this side, and that's okay. But if you want to say they're talking and this person smacks this person on the side of the head, so you wouldn't see that normally, right? Because that's behind the person. So your camera, in order to get that, maybe as they're talking, your camera would, try to get my little position here. Your camera would slowly do it like it, and you move around like this, and then all of a sudden, smack, and they can smack me on the side of the head. If you move the camera, you're moving a line. And that's okay. That's very common on how, like, I want to get this angle that I can't get because we're posed in a certain spot. Move the camera there. Bring the viewer there. Don't just cut to it, or it'll feel weird. Does that help at all? And I think there's, oh yeah, so film directing shot by shot. Yeah. There's and I do have a slide if I can, I'll share that too with that has some books. So let's see. Karen, did I answer your question? Okay. So Daniel asked if you ever made an animated film aside from rigging, do any of the details you mentioned apply to the animation? Yes, it absolutely does. I have made an animated film. My first feature film was animated, and I will be making some more animated films too. Um, you're setting up in an animated film all the same shots, the same, you're setting up. You're breaking down a script. The breakdown is a little easier because everything's drawn, right? You don't have to track down like who's going to make the prop and where the props are going to be stored and so forth. But you still have to keep track of what do all the props look like? Oh, what's the sort of banana look like? I got to make sure whenever he draws the sort of banana, it's always looking the same. Um, so you're keeping track of different things, but you do a breakdown of the script of all the characters. You have, instead of photographs of the actors, you have drawings of the characters. This is what the character looks like when they're drawn a certain way. If they happen to walk a certain way, you have a little short animation showing this is their walk cycle. They have a walk cycle that has their hip kind of doing a sinusoidal, and then this other character has a walk cycle that their hip kind of springs along. You just keep track of different details for animation. Um, as far as camera angles, whether it's a master shot or over the shoulder or a high shot or low shot, all that's the same. Just because it's animated, by and large, and also a little caveat for all of these things, they're think of them as rules with an asterisk, and under certain circumstances, it's okay to break those rules as long as you understand why the rules exist and like what you're doing when you break them. And that's a little deeper than we want to go into here, but same goes with animation. In fact, when it comes to shooting a picture, an animation versus live action, and other than the fact that you're drawing it, you're still designing the shots, laying them out, composing the frame, and creating the shot. You just happen to be drawing it instead of filming it with a camera. Amber says, can you touch on gun safety on set and gun props? Yes, because it's that's actually a very popular question. Because a lot of times we'll do that. So from a low budget perspective, and oh my gosh, there's no shortage of accidents that we read about in the paper or we can read about on websites and news. And gun safety is a big one. My suggestion at low to anywhere up to like whatever budget you're gonna be working on, no, never use real guns. There are so many fantastic replicas out there that look great. Just use an airsoft. You can age it a little bit. And you talk to a person who likes to build models, like, hey, how can I age this to make it look kind of cool or old? Get their advice, make it look old or make it look aged or make it look used. No one's going to notice. There might be a scene where there's like a super close up, like Aliens has this great example, right? Where Hicks is showing Ripley how to work the pulse rifle. I can't believe I remember that. And so you gotta get really close in on that. And that's a hero prop. It still doesn't have to be a real gun. Real guns can be, well, I don't need to tell you. I mean, just like the recent situation on the Rust set, right? Real guns are, in my experience, nothing but trouble. And they're too much potential trouble. So another interesting thing about filming with firearms, even if they're fake. So you can always add, some people might say use a real gun because then when you're firing it, it really looks like a good muzzle flash. It's not really a valid thing, certainly not at our level. Digital muzzle flash, they look fine and they'll do the trick. So one of the peculiarities, and this has happened to us, where we had, and they were all fake guns, right? We were on set and we were visible to houses near us. And we were on private property. It was actually, we were filming in Wilsonville. There's Villebois townhouses now, but where Villebois used to be, there was a mental hospital called Damish, and we were filming on Damish. And so some of the neighbors from across the way saw us. And of course, we had lights, right? So you can see really clearly what's going on. And we got people running around with, gear on and carrying guns and so forth. And they called the cops. Well, the owners we were in touch with the owners, and we also had reached out to the police telling them, like this is part of your planning. If you're going to be with guns and it's even remotely possible, you'll see it from the outside. We had called the police department earlier and said, this is where we are. We have permission from the owners. We have all this stuff handled. We'll be filming a movie. All of our guns are fake. If you want to have someone on set to monitor, you're welcome to have it. I always try to have a good relationship with cops, because they can cause more trouble if you don't. So people called the cops, and the cops showed up. What we didn't expect was the one cop who was driving knew, and the other guy with him was a rookie, and he did not tell him what was going on. I don't think that was very cool. So they kind of pulled up and then walked around as we were filming, and the rookie got very agitated. And then the other cop, who thought this was hilarious, kind of laughed and calmed him down. That was suboptimal, and also kind of freaked out our cast and crew a little bit. But my point was that by communicating with the police in advance, because we were visible somewhat to the public, that prevented what could have been much worse. Similar, like if someone's walking around, right, and you're staging a jewelry store robbery, and they don't know, and a lot of people will make some very bad decisions because they think they're a hero. Anyway, guns are very problematic in a lot of different ways. Always use fake guns. Always try to get permission. Make sure you let everybody know only fake guns. This is the United States, so there's a chance someone on your crew will actually be carrying a gun. I've asked them in this case, please don't have any live weapons on set, because the last thing we need to have happen is something gets crossed, something gets lost, something falls, and someone thinks it's a fake gun. So always use fake guns. Okay, let's see. As part of your pre-production process, do you make work prints or rough cuts? Oh, okay, that's a great question, Brian. So for pre-production, I will do test shots if it's a complicated thing. Like we had an effect shot where we were going to have people running around a corner and having an explosion kind of follow. And I want to make sure that the effect we were thinking of would work, or if we would have to do it from a different angle. And so we just ran out with, our phones or something, and we did a quick test shot. That's mostly what we'll do, is a little pre-production test shooting. We'll run out there and we don't care too much about framing. We're doing a test shot to test a specific thing. So I have a project that is on my docket. It's a feature, and in it, for that project, I have to create a village of Sasquatches, right? I don't want to buy 15 Sasquatch costumes. So I have to do a test shoot. And that test shoot is, I want to set my camera up and lock it off. So I'm going to put it on a tripod, and then plan all my moves in advance. Like, can I do this kind of a shot? And then my one actor in a Sasquatch costume, I'll give you a nickel if you can get through, is going to come out and do these different things at different times. And then I'm going to take all those shots together in post and see if I can't split screen them just enough so it looks like I have a whole village of Sasquatches. That's my test shot. That's what I'm trying to do. Like, I think of this as like the key log. And if you're familiar with log jams, there's always that one log. If you can knock that one log free, you know you can do the rest. And as you make more movies, you realize like things that used to be key logs, like, oh no, I know I can do that. I know I can do a split screen with 7 Sasquatches. As an example. So then the next time you make a movie, if you have to do a big split screen thing like that, then that's no longer your key log. And someone's like, well, how are we going to do that? And you and your cinematographer and your producer all look at like it's okay, we got that. We're not worried about that. We know we can get that shot. You might have a different location, a weird location that has an unusual setup. Again, test shooting. For pre-production, I'll often do quick test shooting at a location. Okay, we're gonna kind of like show how the camera might move, or how I want to do like a reveal, like, hey, here's a scene in a library. Okay, I wouldn't need to do a test shot for this, but this is an example. Okay, we're just seen in a library. We have two characters arguing, and we're going to do sort of a truck sideways across the stack of books until the books open up and we see them framed by the books. Maybe you want to explain that in a way to your cinematographer. I kind of want a shot like this. So that's what you would do. You would I would grab my phone and just do that shot. And then send that little short video and say, a shot like this. And it's okay if you're talking to your cinematographer, like, I don't know what it's called, but I want a shot like this. And it's totally okay, by the way. I have a cinematographer I've worked with for about 30 years. And there are still times when I'll tell him, Ryan, I don't know what it's called, but it's a shot like this. And I'll sketch it out, or I'll move my phone, I'll take it with my phone. It's like this. Can I show you like this, like this? And he'll always is like, oh yeah. Okay, that's called a blah 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 blah. Okay. It's not a contest to see who has secret knowledge. Please be open with your crew. If you don't know something, go ahead and ask. It's okay. So just so there's that. Let's see. Amber. Oh, I just want to mention even with fake. Oh yes. Oh yes. You're absolutely right. Yes. Sorry. Getting back to guns and weapons on set. Yes. Always have a person or persons, but for most of our productions, it'll be just one person who is your armorer. Even though there's no live guns, please make them in charge of making sure that the guns are protected. And when they're ready for filming, you bring them out and you film with them. And then when they're done filming, you bring them back and you make sure everything's been collected back up. They're in charge of making sure that they're safe, they're accounted for, that no one takes them home to show off to the fam. Yeah, oh my gosh. By the end of production, I have found that it just had to be okay with props going walkabout. I don't always like that. Some of them, like, we had a movie where we had fake security cameras up in the corners. Now I know like 6 different brands of fake security cameras, by the way. And they won't walk about. I ended up with one at the end, like, okay. But like a really fancy prop, we had a pipe bomb that someone made, and they made a weirdly convincing, dangerously convincing pipe bomb. We made sure our armor kept track of that. That is not a thing unless I really was feeling mean. You don't want to get that lost. So yeah, who knows? Maybe someday I'll take it to the airport and slip it in someone else's luggage. I'm not saying. Let's see. So I don't mind answering questions and going into further detail on stuff. I'm happy to do that. I know officially we're done at 3, but I am yours. So if there are any other questions or thoughts, or hey, throw some questions at like scenarios at me. How would I do X or Y or Z? I mean, this is exactly the kind of situation that's fun to work through. How to reach me after the workshop. Okay, so you can reach me through hellbendermedia.com. That's what I want to share. Okay, so here's some books that, oh God, there's so many books. You pick a few, cross-check them. So, also, I learned so much by picking a couple different books and then seeing how each book solved the same problem. Because you get a sense of because I can guarantee you that Lloyd Kaufman solves his problems differently than Edward Dmytryk. Absolutely guarantee you that that is the case. Dmytryk is or was one of the classic filmmakers, and he was one of those ones that could do kind of everything. Whereas Lloyd Kaufman, also one of the filmmakers that can do everything, but Lloyd Kaufman, very different style than Edward Dmytryk. This Guerrilla Filmmakers movie blueprint book is pretty cool too. The film directors team, that helps you understand who kind of does what, and most of the time that can be pretty useful. But sometimes you sort of wing it in a small production. There's just like 2 or 3 of us. So let's see here. If you want to, this is our website. If you want to come check out some of what we're doing. We're gearing up for a web series soon, an anthology. So it'll be different stories of all different cast and crew for each. Well, probably similar crew, but different cast for each story. And you never know. If it interests you, awesome. We have a newsletter. You're welcome to join it. But let's see. No notes. Everything's fine. Oh, Amber also points out, keep track of script changes in pre-production. Yeah, okay. This is reasonable, especially for bigger productions. You'll often hear that you change colors for different script pages. So, I mean, you'll be like, oh, what color are we on? Are we on salmon? Are we on blue? Are we on yellow pages? And that's just as you do script revisions as you're going. Those script revisions will come out as different colored pages. You may run across that on some productions. Sometimes it'll be revision dates, especially bigger productions where the writer is right there and the actors are like, I don't want to do this. I want to do it this way. Like, okay, everybody knock off for the day and the writer will fix it. So you have to keep track of these things in pre-production. But that sort of thing often happens, especially once you're starting to film. Yeah, because I say script locked, it's never really locked. It can always be unlocked and then fiddled with. And then Amber points out we are on Instagram under, if you look up Hellbender Media. And yes, I would be happy to share when we're working on a project. And so, I mean, if people felt like, hey, I want to try being on this set, like, yeah, always open to people who want to hang out. And you have an advantage to a lot of people because you sat through my nonsense for twice now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Edward, for doing this. It's been great presentation as always. I know pre-production is such a huge topic, but you were able to really kind of cover it really well in such a short period of time. So thank you so much. And thanks to everybody for attending today. Our next workshop is going to be on August 22nd, which is going to be, we're going to have Beth Harrington, who is an Emmy Award-winning documentarian. So that's going to be fun for people, especially for people who are interested in making documentaries in particular. So Beth is great. She's a friend of mine. She's very experienced. She's made a lot of great stuff. So that's going to be a good one. And so, yeah, if you are on our mailing list, you will get an invitation to that. But other than that, thank you everybody for being here, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend.